What's going on? That's Textbook Sports Squad. It is Friday, October 6th, 2023. Thursday night football just happened last night. But of course, it's Freaky Friday, Feel Good Friday. The weekend's coming. It's quickly approaching. Don't want to miss any of the college football games that we have this week and in the weeks forward. Like I said, baseball is in the postseason. Basketball is just about to start up. They're in the preseason. You've got NFL, college football. As sports fans, we couldn't be any happier. I couldn't be any happier. Let's dive into this podcast. As y'all know, that's textbook. This week, we've got the Red River Rivalry. Texas versus Oklahoma. This game is always one of the most entertaining college football games all year, just because you know that the over is always going to hit. Like, we don't know too much about these football teams. We know that Texas beat Alabama. We don't know the state of Alabama right now. Obviously, we still think they're good enough to be a top 10, top 12 football team. But with Jalen Milroe and the deficiencies of that offense, we don't know where Alabama is right now or where they're going to be. And then with Oklahoma, looking at their schedule, they really haven't played anybody. They've taken care of business. Dylan Gabriel and that offense is putting up tons of points. But we don't know. This game it's like that mystery box that we only know a little bit about. We know that the over is going to hit. It's set at 60.5. Those of you taking parlays, you bettors, bet on the over to hit. But then outside of that, we really don't know a whole lot about these football teams. Let's look at the little bit that we do know, statistically speaking. The Texas defense has faced 4 top 70 offenses. Oklahoma hasn't faced any. What do we know about OU? As I previously stated, we don't know nothing about them. But this is the game that we see with Oklahoma where they match up with other elite teams. Now, the knock on Oklahoma is they haven't faced anyone. The biggest key for the Texas defense, or for Texas, is going to be their defensive front and Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers doesn't have to have a fantastic game to be throwing for 350 or 400 yards, which usually happens for quarterbacks in this game. He's just going to have to do just enough, in my opinion. Texas gets those two things to happen. Their defensive front dominates the football game. Quinn Ewers does just enough, if not more. They undoubtedly walk away with the W. Now for Oklahoma, everything is going to be on the shoulders of Dylan Gabriel, in my opinion. This is a football game, and this rivalry, it either makes or breaks you. And we've seen a lot of players make themselves household names in this football game. Most notably, Caleb Williams in 2021. It was a 28-7 football game. Spencer Rattler wasn't playing too well. Hadn't been playing too well all season. They decided to bench him. It's a 4th and 1 at the 50-yard line. Caleb Williams runs a read option. Takes it all the way to the house. So after being down 28-7, you insert Caleb Williams. Oklahoma walks away with that game in a stunning fashion. Now, I'm not saying Dylan Gabriel has to be perfect, 100%, or do what Caleb Williams did in this football game, but a lot is going to be on his shoulders. Dylan Gabriel has to dominate this football game. He has to go toe-to-toe with that Texas offense. And here's the last thing I'll say about Texas. How good is Jatavian Sanders going to be, and is he going to be available? Because he's a really key piece to that Texas passing offense. Really tall. I think he's anywhere from 6'6" to 6'7". He's either one of those heights. A mismatch nightmare. So how good is he going to be if he's available? And is he even going to be available? No doubt about it. This is going to be an intense football game. It's going to be entertaining. The over is going to hit, as I mentioned. It's that mystery box football game when the only couple things we know is the stats that these teams have, and that the over is going to hit. There's going to be lots of points. Usually, just about every year is one of the game of the years. Sit down, relax, get on your couch, turn on the TV, go on to ABC at noon. You're going to be entertained. In all the sports, we're always paying attention to the upset alarm and the upset alert. There's 3 games that people might qualify as an upset, but I only think one of them is the biggest upset that we need to watch for. It's not going to be Alabama versus A&M or Georgia versus Kentucky, but Maryland versus Ohio State. We saw what Maryland was able to do last year. Now keep in mind that on this Ohio State defense, they're retaining a lot of players from last year. So has this defense gotten better? Because last year, Talia Tagovailoa went 26 of 36, 293 passing yards, and 2 touchdowns. When you were watching that game last year, and you look at the stats that he put up, it felt like he was putting up more just because he was so decisive, and they were getting key chunks and big plays in key moments. You look at that win probability that ESPN had, it was up and down. It was like a roller coaster. I still think Ohio State's going to win this game, but ever since 2018, it's been one of those games for Ohio State like Michigan State and like Iowa, where you know Ohio State's favored in this football game and they're most likely or probably going to come out with a W. But somehow, some way, whether it's the team comes in thinking that they're going to walk away with an easy win, or they're underplaying their matchup, they're really looking over some of these teams, or the weather elements, Maryland is going to give Ohio State a run. And you've seen that Talia Tagovailoa, that offense, has been really good this year. If it's a similar script from last year's game, and it's a shootout, the biggest thing for me is how is Kyle McCord going to handle in that shootout? Knowing about the OSU defense, they're retaining a lot of the guys. They look to be better. Burke is emerging as a top cornerback. He's really been locked down. But if it does, and if the defense does start to bend and start to break, how is Kyle McCord going to answer? We saw the week before last against Notre Dame, in that 2-minute drill, he drove his offense all the way down to the field. Now, the last couple of plays, we know that Notre Dame defense only had 10 players, but it was an impressive drive for him to see on key third downs, key fourth downs. He was able to manipulate the pocket, manipulate the defense, find a wide receiver, and put it in the spot that it needs to be. McCord has to answer the call if this game gets to that type of shootout. Of course, that's Textbook Squad. All my listeners, all my subscribers, special shout out to all of you who have subscribed, liked the videos, followed me on social media. Go ahead, like this video, subscribe, hit that bell, turn on all the notifications, follow me on TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter, type it into the search bar. That's Textbook Sports. Click the profile, click follow. Thank y'all. But let me know, my audience, listeners, Texas versus Oklahoma, the Red River Rivalry. Who wins? What's the biggest upset to watch for this weekend? Do you believe it's Alabama and A&M, Georgia and Kentucky, or Maryland versus Ohio State? Let me know in the comments. I appreciate your support and participation in this podcast. Now, speaking of Alabama and Texas A&M, I wish I could have more stats for this game, more things to look out for. But the biggest story heading into this game is going to be the Texas A&M quarterback. Connor Weigman, he's out for the year with a foot injury. Now everything's on the shoulders of Max Johnson. How's he going to handle it? This game is almost like a copy from last year's game. If you remember in last year's game, Bryce Young got hurt. Jalen Milroe has to step in. Wasn't the prettiest of debuts for him. Texas A&M has a chance late in that game. They're driving. Although you felt like for a majority of that football game, Alabama had this game in control. But it's going to be, for Texas A&M to win this football game, Max Johnson has to be dealing. He's going to have to step up. Because when you look at teams that beat Alabama, and you look at the quarterbacks and the types of performances they had, Deshaun Watson in the national championship game in 2017. Then you look at Stetson Bennett in the games that he's played against Alabama. Then Quinn Ewers just this year for Texas. Jaden Daniels last year for LSU. They usually have these A++ games. So is Max Johnson going to have that type of a game? And for Texas A&M to win this game, he's going to have all the weapons. Evan Stewart, Moose Muhammad, Anaya Smith. But does he have the protection? Because if he has that protection and he's comfortable in the pocket against an Alabama defense that's really fast and they play old school football, Max Johnson has to have a career day for Texas A&M to win. That's just what it boils down to. So we're about a quarter of the college football season is already done for. The biggest question is, who's the best team in college football? Now, Georgia is the team to beat, but they haven't looked their best. And then when you look at Michigan, they've looked really good in the games that they've played, but then again, they really haven't played anybody. Now, they've taken care of business. I don't believe they've allowed a team to score double digits on them. If I'm wrong, please correct me. The offense for Michigan's been putting up 30 to 40 points. In my opinion, this is a Michigan football team that's one of the best talented overall teams that they've had since quite some time. When we're looking at this now, and we're going to talk about this question now, if you have Georgia, that's fine, just because they're the team to beat. But based off the resume so far into this season, in my opinion, it's either Ohio State or Texas. You look at it with Texas, tough road win against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Then with Ohio State, a gritty road win against Notre Dame, a top 10 team. Now, those two schools that I've talked about, they've had top 10 wins so far this season. Are they the best talented? Like, is Ohio State great offensively? We don't know. That's a mystery question to be solved. We know the defense has stepped up from last year. They played a really tough and physical Notre Dame team, and we saw just how not only physically tough, but mentally tough this Notre Dame football team is, coming off of that loss and then beating Duke in the fashion that they did. Then, of course, we all know Alabama. They're going to find ways to get things right no matter what. Nick Saban, he's a Hall of Fame football coach. But in my opinion, answering that question, who's the best college team in college football right now, based off the resume, I'm going to give it to Ohio State and Texas. Now, later in the season for opportunities, I think it's two conferences. It's either the Big Ten or the Pac-12. The winner of those two conferences, in my opinion, you have to decide that they're the best team or not. Because Washington's really sneaking into that type of territory. Although they have some games on their schedule like USC, and of course it's the Pac-12. You've got Oregon. I think that's either next week or the week after. And if you're a huge college football fanatic, you're going to want to save the date for October 21st. But let me know, Textbook Sports Squad, in the comments who's the best team in college football right now. And if you don't believe you can't answer that question right now, going forward in November or in December, who's going to be ranked as the best team in college football? Let me know in the comments. Appreciate your support. Once again, like this video, subscribe, follow me on social media, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube, Twitter. Typing in That's Textbook Sports, clicking on the profile, click follow, share this video, be a friend, tell a friend. Thank you. So speaking of Georgia, their head coach, Kirby Smart, he says that in his opinion, every SEC team should be ranked. Now that's surprising, not the most obvious when I say it's surprising. What I mean is this is an SEC conference that probably one of the worst in quite some time. Last year, I think it was one of its best just because you had teams like Tennessee in there. LSU was starting to get going. But for Kirby Smart to say this, it really caught me off guard just because I view, and I believe the rest of the country views, Kirby Smart as this head coach that really doesn't give excuses. That if his team performs badly, he'll tell them they performed badly. If they played great, he'll tell them they need to step it up. So for him to say that every SEC team should be ranked, well, there's a lot of fans, a lot of spectators out there that say, well, that already happens. No matter what. Like, just for instance, LSU's got 2 losses. They're still ranked in the top 25. Any other conference, with the exception of maybe 1 or possibly 2, a team that's got 2 losses already probably is out of the top 25, heck, maybe even out of the top 35, depending on the conference. So it was really strange for me to see him say that. Now, why is he saying that? Is it because when his team goes and underperforms against Auburn, he can say, well, Auburn's a really good football team. They're a top 25 team. Statistically, they're among the country. They're this, they're that. So it was surprising for me to see Kirby Smart kind of give excuses and deflect the blame for when his team performs poorly or if they lose. And so that wraps up college football talk. I know I usually designate Fridays to college football, but that just about sums it just because we have a couple key games and we have some other games. Not a whole lot going on right now. But as for October 21st, that's when things really start to heat up. So I'm going to be talking about the game that happened last night on Thursday Night Football. Chicago Bears against the Washington Commanders. The Bears break the losing streak. 14 straight lost games, or I believe it was like 15 lost games, or it might have been 15 had they lost last night. You feel good for the Chicago Bears, even if you're not a fan of the football team. Just because what they've went through this season, the type of mental fortitude and mental strength that this team has to give it their best in that locker room speaks volumes to Matt Eberflus. I and a lot of other people have been giving him a lot of heck about the type of coaching job he's done. You're happy for the Bears. And for Justin Fields, back-to-back weeks, he's thrown for 4 touchdown passes and 250-plus yards. Last week had his first ever 300-yard passing performance. Now, I know this is against 2 teams that statistically are the bottom feeders of the league, but it's still impressive in and of itself just because you see him confident in the pocket. He's not rushing things. On that touchdown to DJ Moore, it was the first one. He reads the safety. Safety has his back turned to DJ Moore. Finds DJ Moore to the left pylon. And then for the second touchdown to DJ Moore, it was perfect ball placement right at the face mask into tight coverage. left pylon. So you see him confident, mainly confident with DJ Moore. Now, Chicago's entering into what I like to call a mini bye. Whenever you play Thursday night football, it's like you get an extra bye with the days of rest that you have. There's some key pieces, key players in that game that got hurt and throughout the season. So maybe this is where this team starts to shift. I was projecting that, hey, you look at the Chicago Bears last year, at about early October, they started to get things going after that Commanders game last year, which they lost 12-7, had that mini bye. It was extended a little bit because they played the Patriots on Monday night, won their football game there, and then the offense started to get better. The play calling was a bit more creative. So this is a team that, with Luke Getsy, Justin Fields, they start off the first 4 weeks really poor, and then the next couple of weeks they start to ascend. Maybe this is the type of confidence boost he gets. And you look at the Chicago Bears schedule from here on out, they have the Carolina Panthers, the Minnesota Vikings, the Oakland Raiders, the Chargers. Those are some winnable games, and those are some not really talented defenses. So maybe they can start to rattle off a couple of games. Defensively, they're still really bad. But what I liked last night was that they're creative in creating pressure. Because they know if they're just sending 4 guys, they're not going to create consistent pressure. So they have to do some blitzes from the corners, some blitzes from the safeties, dropping down a safety when it looks like he's going over top, or bringing one safety over top and dropping another one down into the box. So I like that type of creativity that they're having. Offensively, it's really simple for Justin Fields. But you hope that, and the hope for Chicago and everyone in that locker room is they can take this mini bye, start to see, okay, what do we need to shelf? What do we need to bring back from the shelf into the play calling? Great performance from DJ Moore, Justin Fields. If you had those guys, either one in fantasy, you probably might have already won your matchup. Overall, great performance. You're happy for Chicago, for the locker room, for their fans. Desperately needed this after the disappointing, depressing loss last week. What's going on in that organization, that locker room, around the football team, all the media attacking at them, myself included. Happy for them. And that's the end of this podcast. Happy to get the weekend started and to share this podcast with all of y'all. Like I said in my last podcast, this is a podcast for my audience, for my listeners, for my viewers. What do you want to see on this podcast? A rewind to back one of the most historical moments in college football, NFL, baseball, NBA. What would y'all like to see on this podcast? More sports talk? Should I talk about this team or what the outlook is in terms of the draft for some other team? Some of the players that are really rising up into the draft boards this college football season, a projected mock draft. Let me know in the comments. I appreciate your support. Enjoy your Friday. Enjoy your weekend. Stay safe. Take care. God bless. And until next time,